We'll be back again tomorrow for Thanksgiving Eve. Be blessed. Awesome.
The future of the prediction markets, I think, at least for now, may be in the hands of the federal courts. But the good news for those who support prediction markets is that these court battles may last for another 2 to 3 years before we get clarity around the law. And nominee Seelig was handpicked by Donald Trump, not because he was neutral on prediction markets, but because he would do nothing to slow it down.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
A huge number out there on Cason Wallace to win Defensive Player of the Year at 500 to 1. That is worth your attention. And a number that I talked about before the season that I still think should be lower is Mark Daigneault to win Coach of the Year at 11 to 1 in the NBA. If they win 70, he's a lock for top 3. If they win 73, it's his.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
What are those things called?
A shooting star.
Yeah, okay, I'll go with that one. Like it just burns up quick. And you love it while you can see it, and bing, it's gone in the blink of an eye.
Right.
That's my fear for Cam Scatterby.
Yeah, and that's not a big deal, but I will say it's weird, and it seems like he really enjoys that attention, which is all fine because he's a young guy.
Yeah.
But possibly dangerous in a city like New York.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Close to $1 million in volume being traded right now in the Offensive Player of the Year. If you did put $100 down on Jonathan Taylor, that would pay back $143, so a 43% increase on your money that you had. There are a lot of long shots in here, but it doesn't feel like those would be good bets. Like, hey, I'm going to put it on Justin Herbert. Well, yeah, if Justin Herbert wins it, Joe, a $100 wager would pay back $10,000. They even have a market for if you want to bet Malik Neighbors.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Netflix's big sports hire, plus the latest on the NBA gambling case. Front Office Sports Today starts now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today, your look inside the stories that are shaping the business and culture of sports. I'm Baker Machado here in New York City, and this podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. Changing the game has always been our game. You can access NASDAQ 100 companies in just one ETF, Invesco Distributors, Inc. Now, coming up on today's show, another lawsuit filed against Suns owner Matt Ishbia, plus a big-ticket move for the Savannah Bananas, plus could Denver's new NWSL franchise break a women's sports attendance record? But let's first start with Netflix reportedly hiring their face of their sports coverage. So what exactly will the streamer sports coverage look like? And what are their plans to become a sports powerhouse? Let's dive into that in today's main event. Well, Netflix has made their first big sports hire, as The Athletic is reporting that the streamer plans to hire ESPN's Elle Duncan as the face of Netflix's sports division. So what exactly are Netflix's plans for her, and what does this move tell us about Netflix's sports plans? So let's bring in Mike McCarthy, author of the Tuned In newsletter. Mike, good stuff as always. So what exactly do we know about Elle Duncan at Netflix?
Well, The Athletic said the deal isn't done, but, it's getting there. And I'm hearing the same thing, that they're very close and that they're trying to work out a deal where Elle could not only do Netflix, but potentially work for other networks. Maybe even stay at ESPN. Personally, I think that's going to be an uphill battle, because we recently reported that ESPN and Fox have had it up to here, Baker, with Netflix and other streamers using their talent. And they put their foot down on Netflix Christmas Day games and said you can't use anybody. So now the question is, do they make an exception for Elle on this thing? We'll find out.
Yeah, that's such a great question, because she's kind of made it seem like, or at least the story in The Athletics made it seem that she wants to do other stuff. You even had a tweet from Rebecca Lobo, who's Elle Duncan's WNBA colleague, saying that she hopes that she'll be able to stay on at least in some capacity here. Do you think maybe she will be the exception to the rule? Because you're absolutely right, given the fact that ESPN doesn't like to share their talent usually.
She could be, Baker. She's an amazing talent. I've long been an Elle Duncan fan. She and Kevin Negandhi have done a fantastic job on the 6 p.m. Sports Center. She's fiercely intelligent, vivacious, funny. She's got a great sense of humor. Sometimes with ESPN, you got to look at what they do, not what they say. And I'll tell you a quick story. A year and a half ago, I go up to Bristol for a dog and pony show where they're bringing out all their talent, and at one point they had all the heavy hitters on stage. McAfee, Stephen A, Greeny, Van Pelt. The only female talent up on the stage with them was Elle Duncan, and that told me that day that they really value her. So we'll see.
What does her potential hiring by Netflix sort of tell us about the talent maybe that they're looking to hire here? I mean, there had been reports that they were also interested maybe in Malika Andrews, but does this sort of give us an idea of who they're looking to hire?
Well, it shows me that they're taking the final step into becoming a true sports broadcaster, right? Netflix and Amazon, they both entered the market the same way. You know what I mean? An event here, an event there. They borrowed talent. They hired somebody else to do the production. Even on Christmas Day, Netflix isn't handling the production. CBS is, which is why they're able to use CBS talent. So this shows me that this is a marker that they're making the final step into building a true sports division with their own broadcasters and maybe doing their own production. Amazon did it with Thursday Night Football. They went out and hired their own team. They're doing the exact same thing for the NBA. They went out and hired their own team while they're letting NBC do the behind-the-scenes production. So I think step by step, you're seeing Netflix enter the sports space, which, depending on who you are, is either very scary or very thrilling, right? Because all we've been doing for years is saying, well, when is Netflix going to come in? When is Netflix going to come in? Answer, they're here.
Yeah, such a great point, Mike. And I want to sort of go in a little bit more on this detail because I'm curious, what are their sports ambitions? Obviously, Amazon has the NBA, the NFL, and so many weekly sports rights. Netflix is sort of given the idea that they like, solo off, one-off events like they're going to be getting with the Home Run Derby and a bunch of other the Netflix Christmas Day games. Does this sort of show us that maybe Netflix has grander aspirations for their sports content?
Definitely. I mean, that move into MLB was huge. They get the Home Run Derby, which is one of my favorite events of the year. They get an opening day game. And don't forget, they've got the Women's World Cup, coming up in 27. So their ambitions are great. And the thing about the streamers that they do is they're marquee shoppers. They don't go for little events or little leagues to get their feet wet. They go right for the big ones, the NFL, MLB, NBA, the Yankees. They want the marquee properties, and they have the money to spend.
Well, to that point, what sports rights are available then for them to continue to snatch up? Because we know, the NFL rights potentially could come up again in the next couple of years. We know Major League Baseball's up in a couple of years, but most sports rights I feel like are taken already off the table.
Baker, that is such a great point, and you're 100% right. But let me give you an idea that I'm hearing that'll blow your mind a bit, if I may. You know what I mean? What do you do when there's no sports rights available if you're a streamer?
Make your own.
Yeah, and you've got a $1 trillion valuation. You go buy a legacy media company, and you inherit their sports rights.
Yep.
That's what I think this world is coming to, Baker. I think you're going to see a Google, a Netflix, YouTube, even Amazon go after a Warner Brothers Discovery, scoop them up, and just say to the leagues, hey, is it okay if we continue to have these rights? The leagues will be all for it, right? Because they love being in business with these billion-dollar companies. And that, I think, is where this business is going to go. I think it's going to be a business of consolidation and acquisition as much as going to be about picking up media rights.
Yeah, and you made a great point about the Warner Brothers Discovery rights. Reportedly, Netflix, one of 3 companies who have at least placed a bid for Warner Brothers Discovery, which could then fold in TNT or anything else like that. There also have been stories that Netflix have been signing podcast shows. They have a deal with The Ringer. It sounds like Bill Simmons' podcast might go to Netflix. Do we expect maybe Netflix to sign more of those sports podcast shows, and that kind of sort of surrounds the sports coverage that they would have with an Elle Duncan?
Again, I think you should expect them to expand everywhere in sports. And again, the fact that they're starting with Simmons, who's had one of the most popular sports podcasts for 15 years, shows you what they do. They don't deal with little people anymore. You know what I mean? They're not going to deal with some up-and-comer. You know what I mean? They want the ability to buy the best. It's like a millionaire, who goes out in a lot to look for a new car. You know what I mean? He's not looking at a Ford. He wants a Maserati. They go for the Maseratis.
Yeah, great point. Let's talk about ESPN here. Obviously, Elle Duncan has been at ESPN for 10 years.
Sorry, Ford, if you're an advertiser, by the way.
Yes. No, you're true. They're not watching this show, by the way, Mike. So let's talk about ESPN. Obviously, Elle Duncan, losing her would be a huge loss for them, given the fact that she has hosted the 6 p.m. Sports Center with Kevin Nagandi for about 5 years now. There was reports that Malika Andrews was, Netflix had talked to her, but she stayed at ESPN and likely has a larger role here. What do you think ESPN does if they lose Elle Duncan? Do you see maybe Malika Andrews getting a bigger role?
Yes, but look, you can't sugarcoat it. She would be a huge loss for them. But the saying about ESPN is the same about the Yankees. They don't rebuild, they reload.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You could literally staff 2 new sports networks with the amount of ex-ESPNers who are out there. You know what I mean? Thriving. They just reload. You know what I mean? They have such a deep bench of talent. And I think there's so much interest right now in the WNBA and women's college basketball that, they'll find the right thing. What I'm hearing is there's not going to be any rush on this, Baker. It's going to be like Molly Karam Part 2, right? They'll audition some people, maybe even bring in an outsider or two for a hit, see who comes up first in the ratings, and then make the hire like they did with Shea Cornette.
Interesting. Okay, so let's think big picture, Mike. 10 years from now, is Netflix the biggest player in sports? Like, have they overtaken ESPN as the sports destination hub?
No, I don't think so. I think they're going to be much more selective. I think the days of being, everything for everybody like ESPN was serving sports fans all over are kind of over. I think the streamers, as I say, are selective and picky. They only want the biggest leagues and the biggest events. They want to do, home run derby, not the new wiffle ball startup league.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting to see what's going to happen here, Mike. Good stuff as always. By the way, you can sign up for Mike's amazing Tuned In newsletter over at frontofficesports.com. Mike, thank you so much.
Thanks, Baker.
All right, and coming up next, another lawsuit filed against Suns owner Matt Ishbia, plus the latest on the gambling investigation. More Front Office Sports Today right after this.
He's the fan favorite. They love talking about Stafford, the 38-year-old guy. He's the Super Bowl champ. We got the family. Any opportunity to pump McVay and Stafford as a team, they do that. They love this team. They loved Aaron Donald, and rightfully so. Best defensive player, but they love to pump up Stafford.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Duke, you got to look at Cam Boozer. 18 points. The Bruiser, I may call him. 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. I know he shot the ball 1 of 4 from 3, but he's showing his ability to really be a different player than his dad. A little bit more dynamic, a little bit more athletic.
College Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Ashton Genty has been hit behind the line of scrimmage more than any player in the National Football League. Yep. So you just gave him the ball in the end zone. Do the math. How's that going to work out?
It's like what I said earlier.
You got hit behind the line of scrimmage. You got tackled in the end zone.
Yeah.
Oh, they're terrible. But the thing is, Brady, you draft offensive linemen before you draft a star running back. Like they went backwards.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Goff and Mahomes were never taken serious. Hurts won't be, even if they're the 1 seed. Jonathan Taylor plays running back. Stop. Mahomes lost the head-to-head to Josh. Can I confidently eliminate every single person booked behind Josh Allen to at least beat out Josh Allen? So I'm in a head-to-head with Stafford May?
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. This podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. Now, in football, changing the game begins with rethinking it, like rethinking how players work on their game. And with wearable tech, advanced analytics, AI, and more, that same innovative thinking that changes the game could also change your portfolio. And Invesco QQQ gives you access to the innovators who are rethinking the world, So let's rethink possibility. Well, the Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups was arraigned this week in a New York courtroom, that in the case of the illegal poker scheme that is part of the NBA's gambling investigation. Plus, another lawsuit has been filed against Suns owner Matt Ishbia, this one from minority owners of the team who claim that Ishbia is using the team as his personal piggy bank. So for more on this, let's bring in Ben Horney, author of the Asset Class newsletter. Ben, good to see you as always. Let's start first with Chauncey Billups.
Yep.
What do we know about his court hearing and what is sort of setting up here for March in this case?
Yeah, so first of all, never a dull second, right? Thanks for having me, as always, Baker. March 4th is going to be the next status conference in this case. Like you mentioned, this was for the poker case. So there was 2 indictments, right? There was one about this allegedly rigged poker scheme. That's what Chauncey Billups was, again, allegedly involved in. He was charged. Then there was the other sports betting one. Chauncey Billups was not named in that suit, but it's very highly suggested that he's one of the unnamed co-conspirators. He was arraigned in New York yesterday. He was released on a $5 million bond, which is higher than the other NBA and in the MLB case, those players, it was in the 100,000s. Chauncey Billups made a ton of money during his career, so it makes sense. His net worth is likely higher than some of these other defendants. He pleaded not guilty. He claims, he denies any involvement with this mob-backed poker scheme. And for now, he is free. March 4th is the next time we might find out something about this. And at the moment, he's, on leave. He's not coaching and he's not being paid.
So let's talk about this March hearing that's coming up. Obviously, it sounds like all the people that are part of this case, I think, have to be at that court hearing. I think it also kind of gets to the question is how strong is the government's case here? Because we have not just Chauncey Billups, but also Terry Rozier, both saying that the government's case here is really weak.
Yeah, that's something that I, have tried to look into and spoken to some former federal prosecutors about. I mean, one thing I heard was that all of the evidence the government has collected wasn't necessarily in the indictments, right? So a big part of how they do these things is that they're trying to get more information. I mean, funnily enough, they're doing a similar, obviously not illegal, but kind of scheme as to what they were doing with poker. They're trying to lure more people out of the woodwork to give them information. So the idea, with, for example, Chauncey Billups not being named in the betting one, but pretty clearly being involved in that, might be that they're hoping he's going to say, okay, you know what? Like, let me tell you what I know about what happened here to try to get lesser charges. But from everything I hear, it doesn't really suggest that the government's case is weak. But they are clearly making a show of it. They did have, the 30 plus defendants there yesterday. That's the plan. Again, I wasn't there in person yesterday. There was a huge contingent of media. They had an overflow room. It seems very superfluous for, procedural status hearings, essentially.
Let's talk about the face cards here for a moment, because it felt like for a while, by the way, we don't know any of the names in the face cards. We just know who have been reportedly as played some of these games. There's been reports maybe Kevin Garnett, Tyronn Lue, others.
Yeah.
Could we hear that the people involved in this potentially who aren't maybe being charged, but maybe are the face cards per se in this court hearing?
My guess would be that they will not be part of that court hearing, although March is a few months away, so who knows? The government has time to potentially bring other charges. I don't know how likely that is, but any of these people who are at any of these poker games, I think, as we've talked about before, I mean, you have to be a little bit nervous, especially if you know that you were involved in something that might not have been above board, even if you didn't know the full extent of it. If you're Kevin Garnett and you have any reason to believe that your invite came from someone shady or someone connected to, some of these people, I mean, you're shaking in your boots a little bit.
Yes. Let's switch gears and let's talk about the latest lawsuit involving Suns owner Matt Ishbia. This was a previous one filed by the minority owners, but now they've sort of amended it and they're claiming fraud now.
Yeah, Matt Ishbia, cannot catch a break since he bought the Suns. He's poured a lot of money into the team in terms of trading for Kevin Durant, signing Bradley Beal. Those, acquisitions didn't work out. The team has not performed well, although they're playing pretty well this season so far. They still have Devin Booker. These two minority owners sued him over the summer. They're the only two minority owners who stayed in after he acquired a majority stake in the team. And over the summer, they claimed that he was not being fully transparent. They wanted the books and records to be able to see certain things about the financials. He countersued them and basically said that it's sour grapes, that they would like him to buy them out at a premium. The minority owners originally dropped their first suit, which the Suns kind of championed as a big win. But now yesterday, they filed their answer to his countersuit. And it was a pretty spicy. They claim that he's using the team as his personal piggy bank. They claim that he's been doing deals that stand to benefit him and his private businesses, like United Wholesale Mortgage, as opposed to being to the benefit, of the overall teams, the Suns and Mercury. The Suns are very adamant, again, that this is two aggrieved owners who would like to sell their stakes for high valuations, and that there's nothing to this. But yeah, yesterday's filing, very spicy.
Okay, so obviously this is targeted at Matt Ishbia, but we should note there was a bunch of lawsuits before Matt Ishbia even bought the Suns. This one involving the previous owner, Robert Sarver. I guess my question is it feels like so many lawsuits are happening with the Suns and the Mercury organization. Is this a Suns issue or a Matt Ishbia issue?
Well, so, to your point, Robert Sarver had lots of controversy, and he was pushed out of the league because of that controversy. He was found to have just not really been an above-board guy. A lot of the lawsuits that you're talking about actually were filed since Ishbia bought the team. There's been a ton, a rash of lawsuits just in the last, couple of years. A number of them, the previous ones that we've talked about before, are from former employees who claim that it was a poor work environment. And again, a lot of those are actually from the Ishbia era, even though you might think on your face that must be from Sarver. No, the allegations or that the environment has continued to be poor. But again, even those ones, the Suns are very strong about this is not true. They say where there's smoke, there's fire. We have to let these cases play out and see what happens.
Good stuff. Ben Horney, author of the Asset Class newsletter. By the way, you can sign up for Ben's newsletter by going to frontofficesports.com. Ben, thank you. And coming up, we have some news about the Savannah Bananas and what they're doing with tickets. That's coming up next in the FOS Water Cooler.
Let's play our game of buy or sell. Buy or sell. Thursday night football should end after week 10, George. You going to buy or sell this?
It's too short a week. It's not healthy for the players. You'll never be able to convince me otherwise here. The NFL will tell you, our stats tell us no, it's not more injuries. And that's all BS. All right. Should it end after week 10? In a perfect world, there probably should be no Thursday night games. Should it end after week 10? Sure, I'll buy this. But it's not going to. There's too much money here. It's never going to end, all right? They're going to have it forever. You're lucky there's not a Friday, Saturday schedule as well, and there's some laws involved there as to why there's not. The NFL is going to have a schedule or for any day they can get here. It's all about money here. And if the players don't want it, by the way, you got to realize, well, you're going to lose a significant chunk of revenue out of your salary as well here.
Right.
So I'll buy this, but it doesn't matter. It's not going away.
Yeah, George just basically said everything that I was going to say, so the games, so of course I'll buy it. The games are not good. Generally, the home team has a big advantage. If not, the teams are not prepared to play on Thursday night. Yes, there have been some upsets and some underdogs winning. We saw it Thursday night. But the quality of play on Thursday is lower than what it is on the weekends. And there's no end in sight to it because of what George said, the money. That's just all that matters. If Amazon Prime doesn't take it, Netflix will take it. If they don't take it, Apple will take it. If they don't take it, somebody else will take it. I don't know. Hulu, I don't know. You make it up. Someone will. So it is not going away. And, generally speaking, I'm excited every week when the games begin and then I forget and then the games usually stink and I'm like, oh, gosh, this game wasn't good anyway. So George is right. Not going away because of the money.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado, and let's get you caught up on some of the other headlines we're following at the FOS Water Cooler. And joining me, as always, is our senior producer, John James. John, how excited are we for Turkey Week?
I'm starting to percolate a little bit here in the words of the great Walt Clyde Frazier. Yeah, man, I'm getting super excited. My Thanksgiving is going to have steak this year, which is a new addition.
Wow.
I'm not the biggest turkey guy specifically, but I love turkey time, as everyone does. I know you're a mashed potato guy, right? You always
love mashed potatoes. And the best thing is you could do every variation of mashed potatoes, garlic, lemon. This year I'm doing a rosemary one.
I gotta get over to your house. Where's my invite, dude?
By the way, speaking of hot items, besides my mashed potatoes, the Savannah Bananas, Shames, huge business, such big business. Apparently, they want to disrupt the secondary ticket market. The team announced plans to launch their own verified secondary ticket market before the season starts in February. This will be where verified ticket sellers and buyers can connect and exchange face value tickets. And this is the big key here, Shames. Markups on those tickets strictly prohibited. The 2026 Bananas tour includes big stops at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans and Yankee Stadium back in New York. And by the way, there's a waiting list of 4 million people trying to get tickets for the next tour.
Yeah, by the way, Baker, the fact that the Savannah Bananas are expected to become $1 billion franchise, despite all of this, and I think it just speaks volumes to what they're doing for the culture overall. In our story about this, we quote founder Jesse Cole, who basically says, I had this idea and I kind of thought of Walt Disney having the idea for Disney World. And it's a place where purists and lover of the games can just come and have fun. And it's fun for the players and the fans. And obviously, we know Banana Ball is really popular, but I think it's really cool and admirable to see that they're kind of trying to circumnavigate some of the negative aspects that come into sports.
Yeah, and speaking of hot tickets, demand to see the NWSL's newest expansion franchise, Denver Summit FC. That kickoff match has now already surpassed 25,000 tickets sold. That would now put Summit FC about 16,000 tickets away from breaking the attendance record for the NWSL and women's professional sports overall. By the way, that current record was set earlier in the year between Bay FC and the Washington Spirit at Oracle Park in San Francisco, which saw 40,000 people show up. This, by the way, the Denver Summit, that game's going to be in March at Empower Field at Mile High where the Broncos play. So they're already getting a huge boon there.
Yeah, Baker, well, I just saw I got a time off request from you for March 28th next year to go back to your hometown and see your team. Look, I think this is a sign to me that, we spoke a lot about with Jess Berman, the commissioner of the NWSL, about the league expansion and what's the right speed. And the sentiment was kind of like there's clearly an appetite for this around the country. And I think they've got to be feeling great to see that a new expansion team is already selling this many tickets. I think it's a sign, Baker, that there is an appetite and there is real estate for all of these, a sports league that puts out a quality product. You can go to a major city and fans of another sport are still going to come and check out what you have going on here.
Well, especially in Colorado, this would be their first women's professional sports team. So already interest, as we mentioned, through the roof. By the way, ahead of their 30th, which is crazy to think, WNBA season next spring, if we get, by the way, a next WNBA season, the Phoenix Mercury unveiled a new logo and word mark with new uniforms to be released next week. The Mercury say they wanted to modernize their logo. By the way, there's no space references in this one. The M, you see, divides the 4 rings into 8 lines, they say, which pays homage to the Mercury being one of the 8 original franchises. By the way, they're one of 3 that are still in their same location from when they first became a franchise. By the way, the second logo they unveiled features the outline of the state of Arizona with the team's Merc nickname on it. It kind of gives me like Eminem's M, though.
Well, I think the M is looking very Eminem-esque, especially the primary logo literally looks like it's on an M&M that's like orange and purple. I think the global logo that they unveiled is definitely the best one.
I agree.
Part of it is that you need to be able to recognize it.
They basically are doing the same thing every NBA team, which is every logo is a circle. Everything now with the circle.
Yeah, trying to standardize it, I guess.
Okay, so what are we watching tonight on the Tube?
Yeah, so a couple of games to watch tonight, Baker, over in college basketball. Top 25 matchups, Tennessee versus Houston over in the Players Era. That's at 6 p.m. And then followed shortly thereafter by Michigan at Auburn, versus Auburn, I should say. That's 8:30. Number 7 and number 21 matching up in that game. Over in the NBA, we got the Battle of LA, Clippers at Lakers. That's 11 p.m. on NBC and Peacock. Oh my God.
I know these 11 p.m. games are so hard to watch because, especially for those of us on the East Coast, easy, obviously, if you're in LA, but I mean, 11 p.m., woof.
Yeah, really.
By the way, we'll have to talk about the Players Era tournament someday and the fact that all of these teams are jonesing for that $1 million NIL money.
Maybe tomorrow we might have an update on it. We'll see.
All right. I would love that. Well, stay tuned for tomorrow for more. Plus, we preview the big Thanksgiving games tomorrow as well. Shames, thank you so much. And thank you at home for watching. More Front Office Sports today, tomorrow.